Who is the most overrated contender in every single UFC division? That's the question we're trying to answer today. Lucas, how tough was this list to make?
Definitely welterweight was tough.
Welterweight, I don't even have an answer yet. Like I got to pick mid-film, and I'm like, I got a couple names bouncing around, so I'm gonna make a decisive decision in like 5 minutes. But
all right, a little OT buzzer beater.
Exactly.
All right, let's start off with flyweight. Dylan, who's your flyweight pick for most overrated?
I don't even know if you can consider this guy a contender, but he has a number one contender-ish fight coming up that just got announced. So I went with Amir Albazi. Like, I don't know who's rating this guy highly, but he is still like a top 5 flyweight, and he's junk.
Yeah.
Like, I don't see him beating any of the guys who are up there with him. He doesn't beat Tyra. He doesn't beat Moreno. He doesn't beat Pantoja. He doesn't beat Royval. You know, there's a lot of guys that I think beat him. You know, and then when you go a little bit further down, there's a lot of close fights. Yeah. You know, you put him up against the guys in that, like, in the bottom of the division, there's some talent there where it's like, this could be a 50-50 fight with guys like Kai Sakura, Joshua Van, and Steve Erceg.
And I think he gets overrated for his wins that were very close. You know, you have that Krykar France win, and that was a big robbery.
Oh, I didn't even mention Kaikar France and Manel Kape. They both smoke him.
Yeah, exactly. I think there's a lot of guys lower down where Amir Albazi does not really hold a candle to them. And it's just like kind of that Paulo Costa vibe where his inactivity keeps him up high. You know, he had that, was it a spine injury or a neck injury?
Yeah, he had like a broken back.
Yeah, exactly. So I don't know. It got fixed and it didn't help him any. So you should have kept the broken back. But my person, again, this is like, I don't know, by contender, we're talking like, you know, the ranked people.
I meant belt contender.
But also people who are going to be in that talk soon. I went with Joshua Van.
Oh, how could you?
I think that Bedtime MMA's storylines have been hyping him up too much.
I should have gone Loner Kavanaugh just to piss you off.
No, he's underrated. He's an underground artist. But no, I think Joshua Van has already lost, and he's super young. So this is why, like, in a couple years, he could be amazing.
Yeah, but flyweight Holloway.
Yeah, but right now, with all of the hype that he's getting and comparisons to Max Holloway, he's
a big shoes to fill.
He's not Max Holloway yet, bro.
That's like going and calling Makayev Islam.
Exactly. Yeah, and I get that Max Holloway also had losses earlier in his career, so he could be just completing the storyline. But as of right now, Joshua Van does not beat the top 7 people in his division.
True.
You know, like, he's not that title level yet. He lost to Charles Johnson like last year.
Yeah, and that's why I don't call him a contender yet. You know, he's still a few fights away. He's still so young. He's one of those fighters that you think he's like 30. Yeah. He's like 26.
He's 23 or 24.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
He's a youngin'.
That's what I'm saying. Like, 3 years, him and Tetsuro Taira will have a legendary trilogy in flyweight. You know it's going to happen.
We're bucking it. Pure grappling versus pure striking.
Exactly. We're going to Myanmar to fight in Joshua Van's hometown.
All right, moving on to bantamweight. This was another one that was pretty easy for me. I'm not sold by his last win over Figgy. It's Corey Sandhagen. You know,
oh my God, this guy hates.
I'm a T1 Sandhagen hater. They're all gonna come into the comments and just roast me. But like,
I've given up on this take.
you come and face the guys that are ahead of him. You know, he doesn't beat Jan right now. I think Jan is much more skilled than him right now. He doesn't beat Umar. He doesn't beat Merab, and I don't think he beat Sean O'Malley. I think Sean O'Malley is actually underrated at this point in his career. You know, people saw him lose to Merab, but they forget that everyone's talking about this guy as being one of the top 5 strikers in the UFC.
Yeah.
You know?
No, that was just you.
He didn't get outstruck.
Yeah.
He just got out cardioed. You know? He was a 3-2 fight.
Yeah. That's 3-2. That's crazy, man. People think of Merab as this dominant force, but he's a 48-47 kind of guy.
Yeah.
You know, he's less dominant than a lot of champions that we've had.
Bantamweight, Umar?
No, I got Mario Batista.
Oh, that guy ain't a contender.
Dude,
These are cold takes. These are cold takes.
Dude, I'm talking about people who
These are cold takes.
You want title contenders?
You're pulling out Josh Emmett or Bryce Mitchell next time.
No, next time I actually have a title contender.
All right.
Let me tell you something about Mario Batista, kid. Mario Batista
is never going to fight for the belt. The UFC would not allow
it. Is going to be champion. No. I think that Ayman Zahabi, that fight with Aldo and being able to compare them, like, Zahabi landed shots in round 2 that were pretty decent, and I think Zahabi's a trash can. Okay,
yeah, he's junk.
He's so bad.
That's coming from the Canadians.
Yeah, exactly. He's trash. And for Mario Batista to be getting outstruck and also deathly scared of a 47-year-old Jose Aldo, and that's not exaggeration. Jose Aldo's
Dude, he came out and said that he was 45 now.
yeah.
What?
Yeah, dude, it's crazy. Like
he just changed in that age.
Where's his
Next thing you know, he's gonna be 16.
Where's his Why'd you have to say that? Why'd you make it weird?
That's hilarious. That's how they do it down in Brazil.
Anyways,
Do you want to go to Brazil?
I would love to, man.
Yeah, that'd be awesome.
Wait, Dawson's Corner Brazil too?
Get one of those Brazilian fighters to sponsor us.
Yeah.
We'll train with the fighting nerds. Imagine.
Gene Silva would just body shot us.
Dead.
Hospital for 2 weeks in Brazil.
UFC YouTuber killed. Gene Silva.
Yeah, and your pain tolerance is already at
It's so low.
a low
It's
level.
cooked. One time we got to insert the clip of me at the sleepover when I got thrown on the ground and my head bounced.
Oh my goodness. That is the craziest.
That's Max Holloway
clip.
chin right there. You can just hear the smack of my head against the ground, the way that I have had concussions prior and I wasn't. I was just got up and I was fine after that.
We were all silent. Like everyone else was like,
we just killed him.
just killed Dylan, and in his own home. For context, we used to do this wrestling match every year and live stream it on Instagram. We were like 14, 15.
14, but we'd have I saw one time we had 100 total viewers in there. This was
people knew about it.
This was a yearly thing. People look forward to it.
People were locked into our streams.
Yeah, so we MMA we unks.
We're OGs. Anyways, I was recording and Dylan was on the we just had a thin mattress for our wrestling mat. It was dangerous stuff in his basement. Anyways, our friend kind of throws Dylan down and Dylan's head, only his head, lands outside of the mat and on basement cement with carpet over it.
But it's cement underneath.
Yeah, exactly. And you can see the snap on his head hit the cement. And yeah, it's like a loud sound, and we were like, oh, he might be dead. And then he just gets up and he's actually fine.
I probably just had to go Riz.
Yeah. That's where you developed all of your cognitive problems.
All right, let's move to featherweight. This one's pretty easy. It's Yair. The fact that there's talk about this guy getting a title
That's
shot.
what I said. Yeah, that's what I have.
What? He already has gotten smoked by Volk, has done basically almost nothing since then.
Mm-hmm.
Why does he deserve a title shot again? And I'm a D1 Movsar hater, and I almost put him here, and then I was like, oh wait, yeah, you just forget this guy exists.
Yeah, he's done nothing for the UFC in terms of wins or pay-per-view sales. He's not a big name. I don't think he deserves I don't even think he deserves a shot up in the rankings.
No, I think that the perfect fight to book was Diego Lopez versus Yair.
Yeah, that's true.
As the co-main event of 320.
Yeah, and that's hype. I think the Mexican fans would love that because there's actually real beef behind it. You have Diego Lopez who's connected to Mexico, but for context, Yair beat an old, washed up Bellator fighter.
Yeah.
And to be fair,
it wasn't even it was a decent win. It's a 6 out of 10 win, but
and I will say yes, Pitbull is one of the best Bellator fighters of all time, but he's also 37, taking a lot of damage.
He was 38.
Yeah, super old, also been KO'd recently in his last couple of fights. So for Yair to take him to a decision and show him UFC level, I don't think it's that impressive, and I certainly don't think it warrants him getting a free title shot against someone who just less than 2 years ago he lost to by KO dominantly.
Yeah.
What are we doing here?
It doesn't make sense, especially when you have a guy like Movsar. And I think he probably isn't actually he's probably still one fight away. Realistically, there's just no other contender in featherweight. We're in a transition period.
Well, yeah, there's no one. There's no one except Movsar. He needs to have that title shot. 18-0 with good wins consistently for the last couple years now, so he deserves it. Volk even wanted it sounds like, because Movsar's posting thanks for trying to get it done. I guess the UFC just hates him,
clearly. But lightweight time now. Let's try Justin Gaethje. I just think that I'm obvious. A lot of these are I just love it because it's just the takes that I've had for the last year that I just get to reiterate, you know. But I think with Justin Gaethje, we just see the absolute zero wrestling.
Almost got submitted by Rafael Fiziev for no reason.
Yeah, in that Fiziev fight, it was a guy who's the number 11th ranked fighter in that division on short notice. It wasn't like short notice, but still short notice, not a full camp.
Dude, it was hella short notice.
Off of no.
Yeah, it was like less than 2 weeks.
Was it that?
Yeah,
I swear it was like a month.
Who do you replace again?
Hooker.
Yeah.
That Hooker news came out like it wasn't like week of,
right, and then but they didn't announce it till like yeah.
But also like Fiziev was coming off a huge layoff too after his injury, and Justin Gaethje goes out, gets a decision, sure, whatever, good fight, but like nothing that I've seen from this guy has ever been like, yeah, this guy could win a belt. He's realistically like he's outside of the top 5 lightweights, ranked at number 3. Like you might even be able to like. I think him versus Michael Chandler is a close fight.
Yeah, well, I think that just their styles makes it a close fight.
Yeah.
Because you can never rely on Gaethje to have a clean fight.
But there's a lot of guys that you can name in that division where, like, you don't even really have to think about it.
Well, yeah, I thought Gaethje was a little bit too obvious, so I went with someone who you can't disagree that he's a title contender now, Paddy Pimblett.
How is he overrated? Tell me.
I will. I will. He has only beaten old fighters. Give him someone in their prime, please. Don't give him a Justin Gaethje who's 37 and coming off no good. Like, Gaethje does not look impressive anymore. He's not a real title contender, like you just said. I don't want to see his title run be King Green, who is a dumpster fire, and jumped into his guard, literally jumped into his submission. A win over Michael Chandler, which, yes, it was more dominant than Charles Oliveira. But again, this is a 38-year-old Michael Chandler who's, and let's say patient Chandler. Okay, that's a different fighter than normal Chandler. Patient Chandler has been absolute garbage in his last 2 fights. And also before that, laid off for 2 years waiting for Conor McGregor. And then now they're going to give him Justin Gaethje. I guarantee you they're going to give him Justin Gaethje because they want him to be a big star. And he already is a big star. And I think he deserves to get like another shot up because of what he's done. And his hype, he has like 4 million followers on Instagram without even being in a top 5 spot. Like, that's just insane.
And you know that they want the Ilya versus Paddy
and
fight.
so do I.
Yeah.
Like, I want that fight too. If they both win their next 2 fights, I think that fight is what they're going to do. But I don't want to see Arman get shafted as well, because he is the best lightweight contender right now. He's beaten Charles Oliveira on merit, and his only loss is to Gamrot other than Makhachev. So it's like
it's not a loss.
Yeah, it's not really a loss. So like, I think that Paddy Pimblett is gonna somehow weasel his way into beating Justin Gaethje and then a title shot, and Armin's gonna be like, what are we doing here, guys? I want to fight.
Yeah, I mean, I think that especially with a guy like Paddy Pimblett being so mainstream, he does tend to get overhyped.
Yeah,
like he's one of the more household names. He's one of the more like younger generations, and that's where you see the overhype. How many Paddy Pimblett edits are you seeing compared to an
dude?
Armin
It's
Tsarukyan?
like the casuals are like obsessed with him.
Oh yeah,
people who don't watch UFC know Paddy Pimblett.
Popular casual man's fighter.
It's so crazy.
Yeah.
And to be fair, his performances are gnarly right now. Like, he is really good.
Yeah. All right, time to decide for welterweight.
Who are you going with?
There's so many guys that I just don't like in that division.
Yeah, fair. You do have a lot of hate in your heart towards a certain group of people. And I'm talking about welterweight.
I can't choose Sean Brady anymore after that. I'm going with Joaquin Buckley. I am just still yet to be 100% sold on him, especially in a division that is so strong. Mm-hmm. The Wonder Boy win, I just discredited a lot because it was realistically he could have been down 2 rounds. It was getting outstruck by an older Wonder Boy, and then comes and in that 3rd round, it's not a fluky KO, goes and gets the KO, and it was a good KO. But he was losing that whole fight. I also have questions about, how he's gonna do in the long run, being a big welterweight who's a former middleweight who got knocked out a few times in middleweight. This guy doesn't have some impeccable chin. How does he do against a guy like JDM who hits extremely hard? How does he do against a guy like Shavkat who hits hard? How does he do against a guy like Prates who hits hard? There's a lot of really good strikers at the top there. And I think that Joaquin Buckley relies a lot on his athleticism compared to skill. When you talk about the contenders in welterweight, I think he's by far the least skilled fighter there. But he is by far the most athletic and the strongest. Mm-hmm. But I think that, in terms to be a contender and if he ever becomes a champion, a long-term contender champion, I think you need to have skill to fall back on.
Yeah. You can't just have that brawl style.
Exactly.
I can't think of the last champion that was a brawler. Like Michael Chandler was close. But I mean, he does kind of remind me of a little bit of Michael Chandler vibes in the sense of like wide swinging hooks and walking forward as he's doing it. But he has a lot better takedown defense.
Well, and I think you can compare him ish to a guy like Dricus du Plessis, but Dricus du Plessis is probably better than Joaquin Buckley on every facet.
Yeah.
Maybe Dricus isn't as powerful, but his striking, his wrestling, all that stuff is better. Joaquin Buckley's wrestling is good and his striking is good because he is so strong.
I also think that his win, the reason why he's in that top 6, or is he 6? He's probably 6,
I think he's
right?
7.
6 or 7 is because he beat Colby Covington.
Yeah.
Right? And what we've seen from MMA math is Leon Edwards is absolute trash. Colby Covington lost a dominant fight to Leon Edwards in that championship fight. Like, it was not even close. And now he goes out there and loses against Joaquin Buckley. So it's like, how much are we going to rate that Joaquin Buckley win over Colby Covington when that's his only top 7 win?
Yeah.
It's nothing to write home about, in my opinion. And he was dominating that fight. But playing devil's advocate, as much as I hate Colby Covington, he performs best in the last 2 rounds.
Yeah.
As much as I hate him, it is a fact of life, all right? And I'm not saying he was going to come back, but who knows, right? For my welterweight, I have to go, and the reason I'm saying this is because I want to make a comparison. So I want to make a comparison with Shavkat Rakhmonov. Who does he remind us of? An older fighter who had to retire because of health issues. Do you know who I'm talking about? Zabit. This dude is literally going to turn into Zabit Magomed Sharipov. All right? I see the line, and tell me I'm wrong. Zabit had so many health issues and couldn't consistently fight, and he was like, I would say, one of the most talented people in that division at the time, and maybe that we've ever seen. But there's been a lot of good featherweights, so that's tough to say. But he was putting on absolute masterclasses in striking, in wrestling, in takedowns, and just like showboating. And for a Russian fighter, that was pretty wild at the time. It just sucks for Shavkat to have so much hype and so much fan love because of the finishes that he gets and the styles of fights that he typically puts on,
and the personality that he has.
Yeah, just straight aura.
Yeah. Or like even like his Instagram clips of him just fishing.
Yeah.
He's like killing by night, or like fishing by day, killing by night.
Yeah.
Like
he's a chill guy for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think he has all the makings to be a champion for sure, but it's just one of those cases where, did you see the picture of him in that hospital gown? He looks bad. Well,
and here's the thing, Shavkat is one of my favorite fighters in the UFC, but I also really considered him for the spot, and it's not for the lack of skill, it's just the inactivity. And I think that it's a big thing you have to talk about inside of the UFC, because it's not like you fight good coming off of 1.5 layoffs every fight, layoffs. Like, that's not good for your career.
And also, if I think about a JDM versus Bilal and then a Shavkat versus Bilal, I don't know if Shavkat would have had the game plan and the confidence and just the grit. I guess grit is the wrong word, but you know what I mean? Like the walk forward to just absolutely go for it in that Bilal fight, not be afraid of takedowns and do his thing. From what I saw from the Ian Gary fight, I don't know if he would have been willing to jump into the fire like that.
Yeah, it almost felt like, Shavkat realized that, he was fighting the best competition of his career, knew he had that win, and was like, I don't need to risk it against a guy that's as good as Gary is.
Whereas JDM, we all thought he was 3-1 up, and okay, he's got this win, and he went out and won another round, and turns out he needed to.
Yeah.
Which is insane.
That was bonkers.
Yeah, crazy. So, JDM goes out there and grits down and gets another round. Shavkat's like, okay, let's play it safe. I've won these fights where there was 4 strikes thrown. And that's not the norm from Shavkat. Think about the Jeff Neal fight. That was one of the top fights of that year. I think it was like top 5 or something. So I hope he comes back, and I hope he gets a JDM fight or a Joaquin Buckley fight, someone in their prime. and he already beat, I guess, he already beat someone in their prime in Ian Gary. But man, how good is Ian Gary? I have no idea.
Yeah,
I have no idea. He could be a goat, and Shavkat beat him.
Yeah,
but who knows?
All right, moving on to middleweight. This was probably the easiest one for me, just because aren't really a ton of contenders inside of the middleweight division. I realistically think there's only there's 3 contenders and then the champion.
Rob Whittaker, right?
And your contenders are Chimaev, Imavov, Barajo. 2 of them are very underrated. The third one is one of the most overrated fighters inside of the UFC.
Hamza.
And that's obviously Kyle Barajo.
Oh, yeah.
I've been saying it since the Cannonier fight that I don't love him against a lot of the top fighters in middleweight because of the pure amount of damage he took in that Cannonier fight, to an old Cannonier,
Yeah.
Cannonier, sure, he won his last fight against RoboCop, but RoboCop was like the 25th ranked middleweight.
Bro, and he has no stamina. Look at that body. You're not carrying that around for 5 rounds.
Yeah, exactly. Like, we're putting a lot of hype, and people are like, oh, he could fight for the belt. It's like, what? He beat Cannonier. He's got 1 ranked win.
That, like, Cannonier 5 years ago. Okay,
sure.
You're fighting for the belt. But right now, I have Kyle Brallo, obviously. Like, he's considered the best fighting nerd.
Which is, I think he might be the worst.
Well,
I think he has the lowest ceiling out of the fighting nerds.
I think, in terms of like what he's done, he might be technically the best resume in the UFC because he's been around for longer. He was the first one to get signed off Contender Series. But this dude has only beaten ranked wins. Paul Craig, who lost to Bo Nickel. Come on, guys. Bo Nickel. And 40-year-old Jared Cannonier, who he couldn't finish.
Yeah.
He was really close, but didn't finish him. Imavov finished Cannonier, and Imavov's been active and getting in there, and that's what I love. Whereas Kyle Brallo's sitting back.
Yeah, kind of waiting for like his princess treatment almost.
Yeah.
It feels like he's deserved something, but he's just sitting back, and guys like Whittaker are getting fights booked for them, Like, I don't actually understand.
What was stopping Kyle from taking the RDR fight?
Yeah, like, or what from the Whittaker? Like, I just don't get what he's doing. Him
versus Whittaker would have been sick.
Like, what, the Cannonier fight, was that in the summer or was it in the fall? It's
Dude,
been a long time since he fought last.
Yeah, it was on some Apex card.
Yeah, it was the main event of an Apex, and like, it's been a long time. He's just sat on the side when every other fighting nerd is being active, and he's just kind of sitting back, doing his, hanging out at every event.
Yeah.
But it's like,
drinking the margarita that's provided.
There's guys in that division that want to fight, and even if you're not fighting one of the top guys, the middle of that division is so, like, they're so active as well. The Brandon Allens, the Vittoris, the Fluffy Hernandezes. Like, Fluffy Hernandez versus Kyle Barajo, I might take Fluffy Hernandez in that fight.
Yeah, that's a close fight.
But they're talking about this, they treat this guy like he's in the upper echelon with what?
August 24th, 2024. So it's going to be coming up on a year.
Basically like 9 months.
And until he hasn't even gotten a fight book. So it will be a full year probably since he fights.
At that age with, the group that he's into, it's like, it doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
And there was an opening. You fought in August. You go and get another win before Imavov beats Adesanya. You're the next guy in line out behind Chimaev, but you're just going to sit back and let these guys pass you by.
Yeah.
And then wait till RDR and Whittaker fight. Winner of that fight is above you.
Yeah. I don't know. It's tough because Kyle is just marketing himself like any fighter should.
Yeah.
And I think he did want that Imavov fight, which would have been good. So who knows? Who knows? But yeah, he's slightly overrated in my opinion. Who do you got for light heavyweight? There's only one. There's only one man for the job.
There's only one man. Maybe one of the hottest takes I've had on this channel.
Never mind. We're thinking of someone else then. Let's play Guess Who. Does he fight at City Kickboxing?
I didn't consider him a contender.
Okay.
I was looking at real contenders in light heavyweight.
Alex Pereira.
Damn. And it hurts because I love Pereira.
Yeah.
I scream every time this guy gets hit. But I think his career might be over. And it's so weird to think that this guy won Fight of the Year and then his career is basically over. And I think we're living in a world where there's a chance he never wins again. Because who knows how much this guy has left. He's in his late 30s, especially for a guy who, it's like, although he's been in the UFC for a short amount of time, he has been in a lot of fights. He was one of the best kickboxers of all time. And then moves on to the UFC. And I think we've seen in his last 2 fights, the way that he started so slow against Roundtree, and then loses to Ankalaev, just never got going. It was like it was confusing.
Mm-hmm.
You would have thought that he was 45.
Yeah.
The way that he just nothing happened. He couldn't put anything together.
Literally nothing. No combo.
Nothing. There was nothing. It looked like like a light spar.
Yeah.
Basically.
Yeah.
He just got nothing going, and it's like, all right, cool. Like, what's next? Rematch versus Ankalaev. He could put out Ankalaev. He has that power. But if he does the same thing, he's going to lose. All right, goes up to heavyweight. Sure, he could put out Tom Aspinall. He does the same thing against Aspinall. Probably loses.
Probably gets KO'd, bro.
Yeah. So it's not like we haven't seen this guy get knocked out before.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I mean, that's a very fair pick. I honestly did think about it a little bit.
I want to throw some hot.
Yeah,
some hot
no,
takes
it's
in
good.
here.
It's good. I think that I was talking to Darnell about this. Shout out Darnell. And I was like, do you think Alex Pereira wins another fight? I asked him that. And he was like, yes, because everyone else in light heavyweight sucks. But I think that if he does fight again, it's going to be for the belt or he's going to move up.
Well, he's at this point in his career, there's no point of him fighting someone who's not the champion.
Yeah.
I realistically think he has 2 fights left. He's going to fight one more time for the belt in light heavyweight, and then if he wins, maybe he has more fights. Maybe they do the trilogy, honestly.
Probably.
If he beats
Carlos Solberg. They'll give it to Carlos Solberg.
Yeah.
Free tail defense. Let's go.
And then after that, heavyweight, but like there's I think it's so weird to have that conversation. We actually brought this up probably about 2 months ago. I think it was in a hot take video where I think you said that Alex Pereira never wins another fight.
Yeah, I did.
And
say
it's like,
it might age very well.
Yeah.
You never know, especially with all that, maybe the controversy with him negotiating right now.
Yeah.
Okay. I'll quickly go over Carl Ulberg. All I wrote down is city kickboxing needs to be studied. They literally forget to put cardio in their game plans. It's so crazy, dude.
Yeah.
He has the worst. I hate him so much. And I'm sorry if you're Kiwi or Australian, but you need to recognize this dude is just a leg kick jab merchant. Jan Blachowicz won that fight, in my opinion, even though I hardly watched it because it was so boring.
I actually did have Jan Blachowicz as well in that fight.
Yeah, and I think that like his style, especially for light heavyweight, is just very risky. Barely win a couple rounds and then go jab off the back foot.
Yeah.
If you get taken down and held down, you're cooked.
Well, and you have guys in that division who are aggressors,
Yeah.
I think when you're looking at guys in their fights at the top of that division, outside of their fights with Alex Pereira, because Alex Pereira is basically outside of that Ankalaev fight for the most part always on the front foot. And those guys have to play the back foot. And I think when we're in those higher divisions, whoever's on the back foot's going to lose the fight.
Yeah.
You need to be on the front foot. But in Yuri's fights, in Jamal Hill's fights, in Khalil Roundtree's fights, in Ankalaev's fights, they're on the front foot.
Yeah.
And Ulberg was on the back foot. He was just
yeah, even when he's winning.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I hate that. And I think that Yuri beats him easily. Alex Pereira beats him, and Ank beats him easily.
I think Roundtree beats him. I could almost see Jamal Hill because I think Jamal Hill has that.
Jamal Hill's decent.
He has the 5-round cardio too, especially those two in a 5-round fight.
Yeah, plodding forward. Oh man, that footwork.
Zhang beats him too.
I would agree with you.
All right, heavyweight time. There's no other. Well, I mean, it's a division with basically no.
There's no fighters in this. Bro, every time we make a list, I'm like, why are we even including heavyweight?
We just got to treat like women's MMA.
What's the point?
Or
bro?
starting with heavyweight, but then all the viewers gone.
I don't get what the point is. It's Cyril gone.
He lost to Volkov. He has no chance of beating a guy like Aspinall or Jones.
This dude is like Yair Rodriguez. He just gets infinite title shots for absolutely no reason.
Yeah, because he's en français.
Yeah, like they just, for some reason, they want a French champion, they want a Mexican champion.
Yeah.
I don't get it, man.
Who knows?
He's like, also, I love how a random new blob spawns in at the 15th ranked heavyweight spot. You see that?
Every week.
Martin Boudet. Brother, who is that?
Guy I've never heard of.
Oh, it's so
Wins
funny.
one Apex prelim.
Yeah. You're in, kid.
All right, before we wrap up, who's the most overrated UFC title contender?
If we're talking about title contenders, I didn't actually include that many.
But like contender, most overrated contender in the UFC.
Yeah. Oh man, who's your pick? Is there an obvious one?
I don't know if there's an obvious one.
I think it's Ulberg, honestly.
I think right now it's Yair just because he actually has the talk about the title fight, and I think he doesn't deserve it.
Yeah, but if we're being realistic, like Ulberg,
Baralho,
yeah, I think those are 3 solid picks.
Yeah, even gone. He's 2 steps below the top guys.
Yeah.
All right, that's going to wrap it up for us today. Go down to the comments. Let us know who's the most overrated title contender inside of the UFC. While you guys are down there, make sure you guys are liking and subscribing, and we'll see you guys next time. Peace.
See ya.